purpose of Freethought Forum is to be vigilant to the encroachment of religion into government and to educate the general public as to what a freethinker is.
My thoughts give me power.
No scholar can map them.
No hunter can trap them. No person can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei. No person can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei.
Hello and welcome to Freethought Forum. I'm Catherine Fahringer, the producer of this show and your host for this program. With me today I have three delightful women who helped organize that marvelous International Days, what was it called, the International Women's Day March on March the 7th. They really did a spectacular job and I'm pleased to have them here. I have Emmy Magaloni, and I have Esther Magaloni, and I have Marie Alejandro. And thank you all for coming. And they all are associated, aren't you, with the Peace and Justice Center?
Yes.
Right. Now tell me about Esperanza and how long you've been in this. Are you all different times there with the organization? Are you the sort of starting? I know she said you were her mentor, so I imagine you dragged her there as a baby, right? No?
Yeah, she kind of like that. I have known Graciela for quite a few years, and not officially, but every time that the Esperanza has a presentation, or they bring a speaker, or they have something going on, then we'll attend. And Graciela says, you know, I always wanted to see who were these Magalonis that continued to attend.
Oh, I see. She was reading the sign-ins.
Yes. But I have worked with her for 2 years now, specifically on this International Women's Day.
Well, it certainly was a thing of beauty and a joy forever. I thought that was the best organized thing I have ever participated in, and I congratulate all of you. And that poem you read was so spectacular, and that's going to be our treat. We're going to have that. We're going to read that for us. Now, tell me about, specifically, how long have you been in the women's movement, as we could call it, define it, or?
Well, you know what, I have been in the women's movement probably actively for the past 12 years. I do attend in the political arena, but also my work allows me to work with families. I'm an educator. I'm a
yes, you're a nurse, right?
I'm a nurse, and I'm in childbirth education. And in reality, it's kind of all my education is done in a family center. It's not only the mother and the child, but the whole family.
Well, that sounds very good, because it sounds as if you can give some good input to the people.
Yes, and see, and I was based on my experience. I've been married 35 years. So when I got married, I was very young, and I have seen the changes not only in healthcare, but also in the family structures. And my great interest is the family and the integration of that family in a way that will produce young women, young men that have the ability to think critically, and that their value systems according to their family of origin is well cemented and understood. Because to me it's one of the most important things. Yes,
well, I agree, and I think we've had a lot of problem with men not taking their role as husband, father very seriously. They marry a woman and she's supposed to be their cook and take care of their cleaning to the dry cleaners and do all that and keep the children quiet when he comes home and have dinner ready, of course. And was that kind of, well, this is giving away family secrets, but was that sort of your marriage?
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, that's why I'm saying about 10, 15 years. Well, you were to meet my whole family. I have 4 children, and it's like there are 2 families. Okay. For the first 10 years of my marriage, I was a very traditional family structure, because originally we are from Mexico, my husband and I. And then when we moved to the United States, and I was a CPA in Mexico, and I came to the United States, to San Antonio. I didn't speak English, and then I came to a culture that was completely unknown to me, with many misconceptions, misunderstandings. I really did not understand it. And as I decided to go and become a nurse. So I went to college, and I had the kids, and that taught me a lot of lessons.
I guess so.
And I have always worked with women. See, so by knowing what had happened to me and the way that it made me feel, by staying in a sense of ignorance about who I was as a woman, okay, and in reality about what I wanted for my family. As I started to acquire another knowledge and to compare to cultures,
yes,
I feel that I have, in a sense, given a chance and an opportunity to talk about it, and because women, I love women. You know, the young women of today are incredible. Look at Marie, look at Esther, and if we can help them in the sense of clearing the way so that they can become the kind of persons that they are truly, their essence can come true, and feel what they are truly, what a woman is. You know, the life within them, their energy. And yet, that biological blessing that if it is their choice,
yes,
okay,
right,
and they want to become mothers, see that they can do it without any kind of either societal or political, what can we call it, holds, pressures.
Exactly. Well, about 20 years ago, I went back to school to look in on things. I'd been out for a few years, and I thought, well, I'll take a look. I was just sure the whole world has changed because things were looking up for women, I thought. And I thought they had higher aspirations. I must say, I was so depressed because the young girls, all they talked about was who they were dating and who they were going to, how they could get a husband. And I thought, and then when I said, I just hate this course I'm in, I despise it, I don't want to be an educator or whatever it was she was studying. And that really just tore the scales from my eyes because I thought we were a lot more advanced than that. That was disappointing. Are things better now? Because I'm now out of the academic scene, and I don't know what the
I'm right in the middle of it right now.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting thing to be a young woman because especially if you don't feel the pressures, like there's no role for me to take, so I can basically choose to be whatever I want, and I feel very free about that. But at the same time, hormones work, and there's this biology behind you. Where I'm 27 right now. I'm in school. I wonder, by the time I graduate, I should be about 30. By the time once I graduate, I have to think about how many years I'm going to give to my career to try to get it going. And once it's going, how is it going to feel to leave it if I decide to have children, or how am I going to work children into it? It's very difficult to work all of it together. And there is the fact of biology. I have eggs that are getting older, and I don't want to be, it's a dream to think, well, when I'm 30, I'd like to be planning to have my kids, but because of the career, a lot of us are thinking, well, am I even going to meet anybody? And it's a very natural, very real thing. People would like to find soulmates, find partners, find somebody to be with. And I think it's a very healthy thing. As women, we have a lot of conflicting desires and needs, and it's
But you seem highly motivated for a life of your own. These women that I kept overhearing, and I spent a lot of time in the ladies' room. I told everybody I was majoring in ladies' room because my husband took more courses than I did, so I had about an hour to kill in there every day. And the talk was just so generally, well, I really just want a meal ticket out of this, and I don't care for what I'm studying. I don't want to be a career woman. I want somebody to support me. And that was when I got depressed. Now, you're so highly motivated. You could be 10 different people, and you've got all these plans and dreams to fulfill, and that's marvelous. Now, tell me something about yourself.
Well, I'm basically around the same state as she is. I'm 28 years old. I'm a student, and I think about all these things. But in what you were talking about going back to school and being depressed because you saw this, I was really disappointed, like we were talking earlier, that in promoting the march and talking, trying to get everybody involved and everything, I just assumed everybody, you would say there's a women's march, there's going to be unity, there's going to be this, and they'd say, oh, I want to go, I want to be there. And some people would really, and women, I was shocked. They looked at me and asked, marching for what? And I was like, let me pull this long, statistical thing and show you where we're at. We're not where we want to be yet. We're working there. There's women before us that have paved a road for us, but we still have to pave ourselves, because, and I also look, like she was saying about looking to pave a road for younger women, I also see that we have to pave a road for the younger women, because we'll
never get anywhere if everybody doesn't do a little bit of paving there.
If a woman is making 70 cents to a man's dollar, we're not there yet.
Remind me to show you something very funny that I meant to have out here to show on camera and forgot, of course, but that has to do with that very thing about the difference in the salaries for
I think
men and women.
I was really fascinated almost too by the way that women were reacting to. Look, it's International Women's Day. Let's be together with our friends, our other women, and the reaction. But I think a lot of women do not understand how far behind we are, and I think the media is very guilty of it. They show us women, upper middle class women, living these little lives. As they have a career, and boy, they have this real healthy family. They come home to all sorts of money to provide for everything. And women, I think, especially young women that have grown up with a lot of influence, television and movies, do not understand the realities of a woman actually working, or even being a housewife if she chooses to be that. It's not that way. And you were talking about the women thinking, looking for meal tickets. The reality is that even if you desired a meal ticket, right now it takes 2 people to keep a roof over your head. If you can do that, there's no such thing as a meal ticket for anybody anymore.
Right, this is 20 years ago.
Right, but again, I really just think that young women do not understand the realities of the workforce, of the family, the crisis that the families are in right now. A lot of issues they really don't understand. I think the media is very responsible for
Well,
it.
this is one of the things that I was very happy to, when Graciela asked me, Amy, would you mind talking to Catherine? And I said, because I agree with Esther and Marie, I feel that women we need to speak. We need to educate. One of the things that I have learned as I'm growing older, and that I'm very, how can I put it, I feel kind of, I don't like the word obligation, but I take it with joy and pride. And it is, as you learn, as you grow older in life, you have to turn back and stretch your hand and tell them and show them what you have learned. Because the reality that is painted to the media, whatever it is, could be magazines and the TV specifically now that has such tremendous influence, will warp the self-image that the women have.
You're absolutely right.
Of herself.
We have so many people, though, so many children born who aren't wanted and who grow up with such dysfunctional families, and or if any family at all. And it worries me a lot about how to break this terrible cycle of we get along a little ways, and then, as you say, the ones behind, if we don't reach back there and pull them up, but they're always the ones that are so deprived that they sort of fall through the cracks, and we've got this same problem that keeps going on and on and on with too many unwanted babies and too many women drudging around, and it's a sad situation.
Yes, because see, again, where do you hear? Who speaks about the intrinsic worth of a woman, or of life itself, okay? And this is not putting males down. It is also that as a male and as a female, is what is really my role in life? What is my work? What is it that I want to accomplish? What is promoted more than ever is the senses. See, our own, what can we call it? Spirituality. And I know it has some religious connotation, but not necessarily.
No.
That is what the family or the individual, that's what is going to get their nourishment in a sense. That's fine. But our schools are failing us because, again, who describes ethics? I was appalled at the office one day because I work with young women and young men, and they are very confused about what is ethical and what is unethical.
Well, you had a government for 12 years that set a very bad example. And it's cleaning up after that mess. I mean, that is a lot of manure to sweep out of the barn.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think that right there, he said trickle down. Yeah, bad things trickle down, and they set a bad example. And lying and cheating and stealing and being greedy. Those are all very acceptable
things. And the manipulation
things.
on these people's minds, see, because they are so young and they do love their country.
Yeah.
And so when the person that is up there in the hierarchy is telling you and appealing to that love for their country, love for themselves, love for justice, and is being manipulated, they are going to be confused.
Well, it's taken me, when I was young, I was so innocent, and I thought everything I read in the paper was true, and I believed everything that anybody, if it was any kind of news or anything, it absolutely is. And it's over the years I found out there's so much bilge that's pushed our way that isn't true. It isn't news. It isn't. If things are manipulated, it's unfortunate.
That's one of the things. Like when I talk to my family, and that's when Esther wrote a poem, because we have discussed things, and who was my grandmother? There were secrets in the family that were kept away because it was the shame of the woman. And see, and as I became enlightened, in a sense, I said we need to talk about these things. We need to pull them out and understand that you are not to blame, that there are pressures, there are institutions, there are powers in the society that surrounds you that they don't allow you to really move forward, or they don't leave you many choices as women. And I'm talking about my grandmother. This is the early 1900s. The shame that they had to carry through their lives. Yeah. And yet the love that they had for us as their children, see? And I said there are so many women behind us that have endured these social, how can I put it, pressures, okay, that don't have anything to do with the reality of being a woman. And yet you pay for it for generations.
Oh, absolutely.
So we need to discuss it, and we need to open it up and learn that it's not really your choice sometimes. That you're pushed into a corner where you don't have any other word.
Oh, yes, indeed. And speaking of that poem, would you read it for us? Please. I just thought, I was so enchanted with it, and I would hoped you'd brought me a copy, but you can send it to me.
Well, I just happen to have it with me.
Oh, how fortunate. All right.
Yes, I wrote this poem. I had seen a biography of Frida Kahlo on Channel 9, and I was amazed at her because when she'd had these horrible back surgeries back in those times, to have surgery at all, much less back surgery, and she was in intense pain. She could hardly move, but she would still paint. And it's to me was the ultimate symbol of womanhood. We always create, in spite of everything. We still are. Look, there's people still on the planet. That means women didn't disappear. As long as there's women, there's life. And so I started thinking about my family, where I came from, and I came from Mexico, women from Mexico, and there was my mother's mother, Lupita, and her mother, Tila. And these women were incredibly strong. Tila was in the revolution. During the time of revolution, a single woman found some orphan children, and she took them in. She was an 18-year-old, and she washed linen to survive, and she didn't leave those children. That is, can you imagine? Only a woman can do that.
Right.
It's women. It is women.
Yeah.
And so I was really began to realize my strength, and I'd been going through a crisis, and it really hit me, and it pushed me forward when I realized that my heart beating is it's like a relay. They handed it to me.
Yes.
It just keeps going. So I wrote it, and because they're from Mexico, I entitled it Verde, Blanco y Colorado. It's green, white, and red. It's the colors of the Mexican flag. I come from Tila, Lupita, and Emmy. By them, I am infinite greenness, coarse-grained whiteness, and pulsating, implacable redness. Green as the everlasting spring of Tila's arms that embraced her reality and flourished like a vine bearing fruit from which hungry generations could eat. Green, the almendra tree overlooking Lupita's new grave that whispers her wisdom in a salty new voice when its leaves rub together in Tampico's tropical breeze. Green as the truth in Emmy's soul that flows from her lips as from a fountain, spewing gently enough to allow simple moss to take hold, cool enough to soothe the hot feathers of transient birds. Green is the body I will share. It is the immortal longing of my womb and my breasts. White is our inescapable labor. It is the blinding all color of a woman's solitude. White was the sound of the heavy linen that Tila pounded against the riverbank, like the endless ticking of a clock that kept time as she washed away her youth. White was the dress that Lupita could not wear on her wedding day, the shame that she wore in its place to drag down the aisles of her life, the shame with the massive train garnished with beads stitched in place with the sharp needles of her memory. White is the conflict between Emmy and the nursing uniform that strains to pin into its starched bland mold the sweetness of mangos, the joy of warm caramel bodies joined together, hips that held me and swayed to música tropical, the sting of good salsa. White is the crushing weight of the acculturation behind my teeth. White is my effort to sprout roots in a garden where I am considered a weed. Red, undeniable womanhood, the color we are filled with, the color that we spill. Red, Tila's predestination to pump life through the mystical umbilical cord that bound her to creation. Red, the ever-open wound in Lupita's side that she bore for the future and silently accepted as the realization of her end. Red is the pride in Emmy's gait as she marks time to the cadence of her culture. Red is the banner that she waves. Red is the color of my passion. It is the convergence of their history and my present. Red lures me to my fate. I come from Tila, Lupita, and Emmy. By them I am infinite greenness, coarse-grained whiteness, and pulsating, implacable redness. Green, white, and red, verde, blanco, y colorado, like ribbons in a brown girl's hair, like roosters in a cockfight, like cacti in bloom, like blood wine and flesh host, like life, like death, like time, like every step I take, green, white, and red, verde, blanco, y colorado.
And
That just gives me, I mean, really, really. I just think that's the most wonderful thing. I was just so thrilled that day when I was hearing you read that for the first time. It's really a lovely, beautiful, inspiring, moving poem.
Thank
Beautiful. Have you written others? Is that?
I have a few other things I've written. She's a poet.
Are you?
She writes beautiful poetry.
Well, it's I had to tell you something. When Esther one day came out of her bedroom and says, "Mother, I wrote a poem about you and Abuelita and your grandmother," and she said, I couldn't stop crying because I think that she did get the essence of what I have struggled to put across, you know, which is as women. Our sexuality that is being prostituted really in programs and whatever, and it's so much part of us that procreates if that's our choice again. See, and what my grandmother and my mother had to pay for in so many ways, and there's no need for that. And this is again to have the courage to turn our pain, as we run into in life, into a force that reaffirms us. See.
Oh, I think that was exquisitely put. It really was. Now, I wanted to go into an aspect that I found rather puzzling. I've done a lot of reading about the Bible and about religion, and it's very it's a put down for women. It's really a dreadful put down. And I was really kind of surprised. What were the Virgins of Guadalupe doing in the march? I didn't understand that at all. Can you explain that to me?
You know what? I have had to learn that because being from Mexico and what the Virgin of Guadalupe has become a symbol. It represents probably the oppression because the people that are poor and people that are in pain have taken the Virgin, and it is kind of, even the history of the Virgin de Guadalupe is very interesting because it was here, the same place where it appeared. Okay, it was already worshipped by our ancestors before the Spaniards came. See, and what has happened here, this is the way I understand it, and I'm taking liberties because not being Mexican American, you know, I'm a Latina, but from Mexico. The Mexican American people have been, in a sense, oppressed and put in the margin And the Virgen de Guadalupe has become such a symbol of their pain and their yearning. So it has not only the religious connotation, but it has also, it's used as a symbol of the color, because it's the only brown virgin that you find.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that was a puzzling thing to me, because I thought, well, there's that thing again where they put women on a pedestal. They've got to be virgins, for crying out loud, or they're no good. And it did something, I didn't understand it. So I'm glad to know then that there is a deeper meaning to it. But it does have that, as I say, so much in the Bible is such a put down of women. They're so
it's also interesting in the way that as Latinos in the United States, the churches are so well defined in a sense, and you just cross the border, and probably here also as a group, we take our liberties. Well, the priests have to worry about all these things, but we just do with the religion what comes from the heart.
Now, you're fairly new into this Esperanza thing, aren't you? I mean, you haven't been going there very long. Were you two friends before?
We just met.
Oh, you did?
Right, yes, I'd heard wonderful things about her.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, it was the Women's March that actually drew me in there, it got me all excited, and I went and talked to Graciela and all.
Yeah, well, I was interested in what you said about the attitude that you were met with when you said, oh, big march for women. What are they marching for? I mean, really? The news isn't out yet. There's something wrong. We need to...
It was interesting. And another thing, when you were talking about, and Emmy was pointing out about the images that women face and how they struggle with their sexuality because of, they prostitute our sexuality. I was very disappointed to look at I was watching the news the other day, and they were talking about the Women's Center. I thought, oh, how wonderful, and here's where women come and we teach them skills, and when they're going through a divorce and we help them and this and that, and they centered the entire thing around wearing makeup.
Oh, no.
And I didn't see that.
Oh,
I was
trivial.
so disappointed.
Oh, I guess so.
And because the older women were sitting there and they were saying, well, you're not as young as you used to be, but, and they're all putting on makeup, and the whole struggle that we have is that we're not beauty, idols to have as possessions. Yeah. We're women, living, breathing human beings with desires and functions and needs and everything. I would really, love for women to struggle to shed that, not necessarily rejecting and say, I'm not going to wear makeup, but reject it as your identity. As
I will go along with that, because I think women have let men do terrible things to them. And some of the clothes that men are putting on women and taking off women are just, to me, abhorrent. They are really Trashville. It's painful to go shopping these days, I think. It's just really rather dreadful.
The march, I wanted to mention the march, we wanted to offer it to the women in Bosnia, and specifically to the violence that women have to endure.
Oh, that's terrible over there, just terrible, and that was really wonderful. Well, we are, as usual, running out of time. I can't believe how fast it goes. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate this so much, and I'll help you next year on the march. I'll try to get some people interested, okay?
Wonderful.
So that just about does it again for Freethought Forum, and I hope you'll tune in again next week and see us take up another controversial issue. I do like to do a lot of...
I think as I please, and this gives me pleasure.
My conscience decrees, this right I must treasure.
My thoughts will not cater
to duke or dictator, no person can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei, no person can deny. Die Gedanken sind frei. And should tyrants take me and throw me in prison, my thoughts will burst free like blossoms in season.
Foundations will crumble and structures